Welcome to our first episode of Inside the Message. So we would like to gather with you after the messages that we're bringing forth so that you can have a participation in the kind of dialogue that we have literally every day for the most part.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's around the breakfast table, sometimes it's when we're walking in the park, sometimes it's out on the patio after dinner. But we are almost always in a spiritual conversation, and we're talking about True Thought Principles, which is, of course, the name of our spiritual community, True Thought. You can find us at truethought.org if this is the first time you're listening in. But this is my lovely wife, Reverend René, and I go by Brother T. It's kind of my spiritual name in the sense that I don't want to focus on my name. It's not about me or about my name. It's really about who I am in God, if you will. And so today we just want to talk about the message that you shared this morning, which is a beautiful message. I was particularly attracted to, and I'm not a huge fan of the Bible. Hope you don't hold that against me. But I was, I liked the message of Joseph, and how ultimately his life became extremely meaningful.
Yes.
And his father, maybe let's say, recognized something there, a gift that he had, as you were telling the story. But it didn't look like, the way the events unfolded, that something good was happening. It looked like something bad was happening.
Right. And that was used to illustrate the idea that that what may be a challenge in our lives right now, and in our experience of life in the United States right now.
And around the world.
And around the world during this COVID experience and all the implications that it has. And even just simply life, that there are things that happen that we don't understand in the moment. And if we take the perspective that our life is extraordinary because life is actually for us and not against us, and if we take that as a practice, then we begin to look for the ways that that is true. And we look beyond the conditions, and who knows what a thing is for. Sometimes we look back on our lives, don't we? And we're like, okay, that's why I had that experience. And it's only then that we realize the gift that it is. So the call is to have that mindset while we're in it right now. The trust and faith that nothing is against us, everything is for us, and our life is extraordinary. And that as we have that mindset, we'll look for the lessons that are there for us. And I think this is the time to be doing that.
Right, and I think that is one of the true thought principles, if you will, is that everything is a lesson. And we don't always grasp that. It looks like things are happening to us. It's almost for the first few decades of my life. I had the perception that the world was coming at me. I didn't know what was going to happen tomorrow, and I would get up and read the paper or get a message from my boss or from something that was going on around with other people in their lives. And they were making their own choices, free will. We all have free will, right? We're all sovereign and we have free will, but people were making their choice. So it felt like, it absolutely felt like, and I had decided that was my quote unquote belief system, that the world was happening to me. And what I didn't realize until I was attracted to this teaching of True Thought Principles, that the world is not happening to us, right? So if it's not happening to us, right? If it's not happening to us, everything is a lesson that we are crafting. And I thought it was beautiful how you mentioned that in your message today, because you really elucidated that, we're the ones that are creating our own ashram. Now, I agree, it's really hard when somebody's having an illness or financial calamity or relational calamity or whatever it is that's going on in the personal life of this body-mind self. It looks like there's no way that I would choose that. Right. And the truth is, what we begin to understand is that's right. You wouldn't, as the personality ego separated mind of the ego self, thinking only of itself, thinking itself to be something other than what it is, it wouldn't make that choice. It wouldn't choose to have that experience. But the interesting thing is the higher self of us, the bigger part of us, the self that's not in the body-mind experience, literally, other than kind of peering in and watching our experience of it, kind of sets us up to have these experiences so that it can distill the wisdom from those experiences. And so if the wisdom that we can get from what's going on in the world today is that we don't know,
Right.
right? We just don't know. That little small ego self has no idea.
Yeah.
But there is always a bigger game afoot, as I like to say, in spirit, that we are being guided. Now we have free will. We don't have to participate. We don't have to participate in it, right? Joseph's brothers had 11 brothers. Some of them could have said, "No, wait a minute. I'm not going to throw my big brother into the pit." And I, from a family of about 10 kids, well, not of about 10 kids, and then that continued to expand. So it was more like 13. But the point is that by the time I was getting older, I was the oldest son. So that wouldn't be too cool, if my siblings and my sisters would join in that, at times I'm sure they would have, to cast me out.
Right, right.
Because I was the oldest son. And from their perspective, I was probably getting some preferential treatment. I was the first one to drive a car. I was the first one to get out of the house, first one to escape.
Right, right.
Right?
Yeah.
So they could have acted against me, but they all have free will. But the potential is that there were lessons that were set up by them. These were lessons that they actually set up for themselves. If we look at it, they came back together with their brother.
Yes.
Right? And he was still operating out of a principle, right? He didn't attack them. He didn't assault them. He had connections at that point with the leadership of the governance, right? And he probably could have had them murdered or stoned in the street or crucified or whatever is popular at that moment.
Right.
But he didn't act that way.
No.
He didn't hold against them what they did. He simply said, as you shared, it was what God
meant it for good.
God meant it for good.
You might have meant harm, but God meant it for good. And one of thank you. I love hearing Tony's perspective because we do share so much. And but once I give a message, I never know exactly how it's going to come out exactly. And so it's fun to get your view, and we want to hear yours as well. But one of the parts of the story, it's a really long story, but when the brothers came and reunited with Joseph, Joseph did test them. He wanted to see if their hearts had changed.
Oh.
And it's kind of convoluted how he did that, but he set up another one of his brothers and wanted to see whether they would have that brother take the fall. And rather than doing that again, they banded around that brother. And so Joseph saw that their heart had changed. And in that moment, he met them with that changed heart.
So they had gotten a lesson.
The brothers,
to them.
Right. And I imagine, I imagine this story of, when I tell a Bible story, when I share one of those stories, we're every character in this story. Now, we want to identify ourselves with Joseph, but we're also the brothers who betray or throw their brother in the pit. And we've been all these characters.
Yeah.
And so they're all reflecting an aspect of ourselves. And I know that when I've done a transgression, when I've made a mistake, how guilty I have felt. And so, part of the story might also be how the brothers
set themselves up.
And
unbeknownst to them, literally.
And how guilt might have played a role in their life, and how maybe self-forgiveness comes through. I don't know. We can look at it from so many different perspectives, but today I wanted to use it as the idea that who would have known that he would have, that not only this would have served Joseph, but it would also bless the brothers And what it says is it saved lives.
Saved lives. Right.
Yeah, it saved lives.
And I absolutely believe that what we're going through today, that there are people with altruistic intention that are absolutely concerned in saving lives. I also believe that this is the world of duality, and on the other side of that coin, there are people that are absolutely benefiting and prospering and gaining power and control from what's happening in the world. Our culture is shifting, our governance is shifting, the way we see each other is shifting. You know, we are isolating ourselves even more, we're cocooning even more, and you know, we're not meeting. You know, something that we thought was never going to happen. You know, you couldn't have told me 7 months ago that it would ever happen in our country today, because our First Amendment, or some of our first rights in our Constitution, is the right of assembly. You know, and we're not assembling in our churches and we're in our synagogues, and we're not gathering together to live and grow and understand together in one place. But then again, we are, because you're there, we're here, and we're literally all together wherever two or more are meet. You know, God is with us, truth is with us, if we are willing to see. So we are gathering. So rather than lamenting that we're not, we have the ability to be creative, because we are creators, and we can shift the way we do things, and we can honor and respect what we need to in this moment and be together. The world is not coming at us. We've created this opportunity for us to see things in a new way. Okay. So I just want to say I really appreciate what you shared today. I think it was very impactful. And it stirred up a lot of things in me.
Did it?
About myself, about my past, about the world today.
Right.
Right. And if I can fall back then on the lessons that I've learned, that the lessons that have been taught to me for decades, as I said earlier, without somebody to help me see the contrast between the choices that I didn't even know were available to me and the ones that I was making out of habit and reaction, I was continuing to recreate the same experiences over and over and over. And most of the time they were struggle, scarcity, lack, guilt, and all the ramifications that go with that. Things that we would call sin. But sin itself is just a construct that we've developed.
Sure.
Right? But now having the opportunity to be exposed to true thought and applying those principles, and those principles begin to inform the way that we see the things that are occurring, we can look today, if you're willing to take the challenge with us, we would ask this week that we just look at the world this week with eyes of allowance, acceptance, and forgiveness. Can we get through even today? Right? And just not be angry if because somebody that's close to us suddenly found out that they're not employed. Somebody that's close to us suddenly found out that they've got some illness that they were unprepared for. Somebody that's close to us or ourselves is having some kind of calamity in their life because of what appears to be outside of us. So the conditions are deserving of the blame, deserving of the condemnation. But the truth is, we only injure ourselves when we condemn anything, not just people, but anything, any situation. So to me, it gets back to the true thought principle of all events are neutral, if I can throw that in. That one's a really hard one for me to grasp.
Right.
But if all of these things are events, if the life that Joseph had with his family and being thrown in the pit and being sold off to slavery, those are events. Mm-hmm. If they have no meaning, not really, they only have the meaning that we give them.
Sure.
And it's in recognizing that we are ones giving those meanings that we begin to take our power back.
Right.
And we begin to see the innocence of all things that are happening, and we're being guided gently, year after year, decade after decade, relationship after relationship, into knowing more about who and what we are in God.
Right, right. Yeah. It's so multi-layered.
It is.
There are so many different things, but all events are neutral, and when we're in an event, a life-changing event, it's really hard to say that. And as a teacher or as a friend, it seems callous to say that. Well, like in my case, losing my job at this time and the way that it occurred and the story that I make around it and the sensitivities that I have and the lessons that it brings up for me. I wanted to kind of bring that in to let you know that we walk this path. And the idea of, when I'm in an event, to remember, okay, this is neutral. This event is actually neutral. Somehow it is for me.
Right.
I can't see it right now. I may not know. But I begin to take that mindset. And by taking that mindset, I create a spaciousness in my field of possibility, my realm of possibilities, because I'm not naming it bad or negative, and I'm not blaming somebody else for the experience or not condemning them. And again, not that I haven't gone there in my consciousness, but the practice of catching myself when I do. Because another principle is that I can't attack, I can't condemn without condemning myself.
That's right.
And so back to, claiming, no, everybody's proceeding in the absolute. I implicitly trust God. I implicitly trust that this situation is bringing forth good for all. And hey, it's tough. It's tough when you're accustomed to, a paycheck, or you're accustomed to your life being a certain way, and then suddenly it isn't. So we're not saying that isn't challenging, but yet in the challenge is where kind of the rubber meets the road. And also, I believe, where we find the gold, where we find the gift. I think it's interesting that in the story of Job, his gift couldn't be squashed. You can believe that when an event happens to you, or it feels like it's happening to you, that who you are and the gifts that you have and what you bear and bring in this world, that you can't bring them anymore. And the point is nah. Can't touch that gift that you are. Can't touch that gift you are,
Right.
So even if the challenge is an illness that seems to take our lives, we believe that our life is eternal. So even in that, even in going through what looks like death, the principle that no, life is eternal. So we really mean to apply these true thought principles in every situation, that they don't change up, they're not situational, they're not conditional. Right. And as we do that, I think together and have these conversations, sometimes they're tough conversations.
They're very tough conversations.
Yeah.
You kind of talked about how we hear these, people commenting, and you might find yourself doing it, certainly people around us, saying, how could God let this happen?
Yeah.
Right? How would God let this happen? So, but if we back away from that conversation and we say, let's look at the system that God has created, the universe, if you will, that God has created, that we get to play in. And we are playing here. We're playing this crazy game of separation at the moment, but we're playing in this universe. And this universe, like a game, like any game, has rules, right? And the rules that God has set up is that you have free will. Hallelujah. You can decide what you want to think, what you want to do, what you want to act, and truthfully, nobody can cancel you, right? Because you are as God created you to be. But the deal is that the system that the universe that we reside in is reflective. And so really what it's doing is showing us the effect of our thoughts. And if we're aligned in truth, the effect that we see is more grace, more love, more joy, more abundance, and a lot less worry, because we see that it's just reflecting back the alignment that we have or don't have to truth, true thought principles. And when we get out of alignment, we can feel it. We can feel it in our body. We can feel it all over. We feel the struggle. We feel all those things. And the point is that it's a system that we are existing in. So God isn't choosing the way we're reflecting ourselves in this universe. He says the universe is reflective. You have free will. You are created as me, as spirit, as love, and go play, right? Be love. But if we choose to be anything other than love, guess what happens in a reflective world, in a reflective universe, right? We're only experiencing our reflection, our consciousness, as you said, our overall consciousness as a mass consciousness, or the consciousness of humans on the planet. And it's playing itself out, reflecting itself back in circumstances that look like it, yes, it's coming at us, but it's not. It's reflecting our consciousness back at us. And so God isn't doing anything or manipulating anything. He put us in a universe of love that reflects our thinking and our thoughts.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that, because that's exactly the basis, the reflective universe and that concept, the basis for how I will then say we live in a benevolent universe.
We do indeed.
Because how loving is that? How loving is it to give us that instant feedback about who we are and who we are being.
And how powerful we are.
Yeah.
Or how weak we choose to play.
And so that's why it's for us. It's showing us what we can't see about ourselves. And so so that's why we can say we live in a benevolent universe. That's why we can say it is for us, even when it seems to be against us. And then we didn't really talk about this today. There's nothing really out there. There's no one else really out there. So that's why you can't cancel your brother or sister, or you can't condemn without condemning yourself. It's like,
that's the system.
And so, and it's really not so much that it's about me as an individual, but it's about me as joined in oneness. If we are really saying there's only one, but then it looks like two and millions, right? But back of that, when we join in heart and mind, we're joining in that oneness, and we're all aspects of that one. So we've covered a lot of ground.
And hey, thanks for hanging out with us. This is kind of fun. In fact, I think it's a lot of fun.
We love it. We love it. We love you.
Yeah.
I love him.
And when you're watching this, you have an opportunity to comment. Here on our YouTube channel. We may put some of this out on our Facebook. You can comment there. Our Facebook, you can just go to our website, truethought.org, and we'll just direct everybody there, because you can find everything we're doing there. You can sign up for our email list so you can get notifications when we're, blogging or vlogging or, podcasting or maybe doing, inside the message discussion. And we don't want anybody to be left out. We certainly don't want you to be left out. If you find value, we certainly want you to know that we're working, diligently to bring this truth that True Thought principles provide for us in our lives, so that everybody can begin to take back their power. And it's just a blessing. So do you mind just let's maybe pray us out a little bit, just a little blessing, and we'll sign off.
Sure. So I just invite you to just to turn within, maybe allow a smile upon your face, because that's what's on my face right now, and it's informing me of a deep and profound gratitude and joyfulness. And that gratitude and joyfulness, as I connect and pause in spirit, holy and divine, and join in heart and mind. I join with Brother T, my husband. I join with everybody who is in the vibratory field of hearing or seeing this message. And that we just pause for a moment and consider the connection that we experience with God and the oneness that I call all that is. And it is from that consciousness I just bless. I bless us all. I call forth goodness and grace and beauty and joy, health, wholeness, vibrancy, purposefulness, and awakening. I call forth for each of us a greater knowing of being face to face with that knowledge, that divine self, and that in knowing this truth, it sets us all free. I call forth a blessing on all of creation, all of humanity, all of the earth as we go through this experience. And I call forth the evolution of human consciousness to awaken to its magnificence, that we create this world according to the love that we are. This is what I know, this is what I claim. I see it done, we celebrate it, and together we may say, and so it is.
Amen.
Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah.
And we'll be back. Stay tuned.
Yeah.
Hope you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.
Bye.